Hello, everyone. This is Michaela, and you're listening to the End All the Things podcast. As a life coach and facilitator, I work with individuals and groups to empower their best selves to shine to the betterment of all involved. My goal is always to bring you closer to trusting the voice inside of you that is authentically yours. My job here is no different. In my journey through life, I continue to meet people who use their authenticity, their gifts, to grow, change, and serve through professional and personal endeavors. These people and their stories become my gift to you, for I cannot keep a good thing to myself, and I believe that they may inspire a part of your story to evolve. When I talk about how people use their gifts to grow, change, and serve, I very often have an image of my next guest come to mind. You are about to meet Jim Gano. Locally, he is known as The Voice. Globally, he is known as an author, an entrepreneur, a guy who digs into community and service. He is a guiding light. He is a cancer survivor. He is the kind of guy you want in your corner. He is also chock full of good information. So he shares with us today his experience of being an entrepreneur and using that opportunity to serve. We talk about overcoming. We talk about being an author and finding the voice. We talk about highlighting the gifts of others and sharing it out loud. And we talk about trucks, old trucks, Hess trucks, you name it. So please settle in and enjoy this conversation with Jim Gano and all the things. Thank you so much for joining us at another episode of And All the Things. Today, I bring you, now, I want to say Jim Gano. Sometimes I hear people say Gano. Tell us, who are you and how do you identify?
My name is Jim Gano.
I got it right the first time.
Very similar to the current not punter, but the field goal kicker for the New York Giants also has the same name. And we've traced some of our family history and we're pretty sure we're related. We're just not like sure the distance, how. But it is Gano. And it's funny because I've heard Gano, Ganu, and then just this past weekend at a wedding, the MC came out and said, "We'd like the Gano party," and I'm like, "Well, who's that?" I answer to anything. So
yeah. Well, and I think that says a lot because I think I've heard all of those iterations of your name, which tells me that people are talking about you. People know you. And I mean, I could go on all day about how people know you, but what do you think in our community? And for reference, we're talking about, Hunterdon County, New Jersey. Why does everyone know your name, even if they get it wrong?
I think most notably, it's, first the business Crown Trophy of Flemington. I'm not the type to sit on the sidelines and watch, so I get involved. So years ago, there was an organization called the Flemington Business Improvement District. They asked me to be a part of that. And again, I'm not one to sit on the sidelines, so I have a big mouth and I'm not afraid to use it. So if I see that there's something wrong, I'm going to speak my mind. That changed into the Flemington Community Partnership, and it was the same thing. If something was wrong, I'd rather speak up and offer my opinion on how it could get better. The business has done a lot for me as far as visibility, and then people started to either they're following me on Facebook or something like that, and they're starting to see a little bit of the personal side too, and the activities that I'm involved in. And, that's when I think it kind of just grew organically.
And people might recognize your voice if they live in our area, because not only do you have your own radio show through the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce, which is taking care of business, which I'm very grateful to have had a spot on twice now with you under two different businesses. But you're also an announcer at football games. I mean, do you do the auctioneering?
I do just about everything when it comes to announcing. I've been doing high school football and basketball at Bridgewater Raritan for, I think this is my 41st year. I've worked with the Somerset Patriots, the New Jersey Pride of Major League Lacrosse, the New Jersey Devils, and their alumni teams. I MC a lot of events. So people will, know me. The funniest story that I have with that is earlier this year, I took part in a 10-week course called the Bridgewater Citizens Police Academy. And it was an opportunity for us to learn about police work and the training that they go through. We had to do a lot of the training that they do. And at one point, the chief, John Mitzak, tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, "Can I see you in the hallway?" I'm like, "Sure." Now I'm in trouble. So I go out in the hallway and he says, "I got to ask you a question. Do you announce the football games at Bridgewater?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I thought that was you." I said, "Well, it's April. How would you know that I do the football games?" And he goes, "I'm an assistant football coach at Watchung Hills, and I remembered your voice." And I was like, "Wow, from 6 months ago." So it is recognizable, and I've been tagged with the nickname The Voice, at Bridgewater Raritan. And when I can go to a restaurant or down the hall or something, and someone, "Hey, there's The Voice." I'm like, "Okay, yes."
I love that. Is that would you say your voice is, and as you know, this show is based on the idea of highlighting how people use their gift, that thing that makes them so magnificent and special, to grow, change, and serve. Would you say your voice is that thing for you?
It can be. The beautiful thing about The Voice is that it has to speak words, and the words you choose will determine how an audience reacts. I've had 7,200 people in front of me at the Patriots baseball stadium, and I've made them laugh and I've made them cry. We went through 9/11 together, and so there's certain moments when you have to be dead serious and certain times when you can be really silly. But it's kind of in the words you choose and the tone that you use to determine whether or not the message is coming across the right way.
And is that something you've had to practice and hone in on?
A little bit. When I was a broadcasting major in college, and the unique thing about my school was we were on the air first week of our freshman year. And in some colleges, you'd wait till your second semester senior year before you ever got a chance to have a shift. And after 2 weeks, kids started coming up to me, "Hey, Mark Mills wants to see you. Mark Mills wants to see you." He was our professor. Wherever I walk, Mark Mills wants to see us. So I go up into his office and he sits down. He's got a reel tape machine. And he said, "Son, what's your chosen major?" I said, "Well, I'm broadcasting." And he goes, "Listen to this." And he turns on the tape and it's my air checks. And I was horrible. And he turns it off. And he goes, "Son, you suck." And he goes, "I think you need to find a new major because you're not going to make it. What's your problem?"
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Well, I'm afraid of what people are hearing. Do they like me? Do they not like me? And all that stuff." And he looked at me and he pointed his crooked index finger at me. And he said, "Son, I'm going to give you some advice that I want you to use on the radio and in your life." And he goes, "Just don't give a shit what anybody thinks about you." And that was delivered to an 18-year-old me. And here I am, 62 years old. And I still am guided by those words. I don't care. And I used to really care. But now it's like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and let the chips fall where they may, because I think what I'm doing is right. Not, if I do this, will people like me more? Will they like me less? How will this impact? If it's right, I'm just going to do it. And it's always with his voice in the back of my head.
Well, but that's the part of you that I so deeply admire, is that while you have this gift of your voice and you say great words, right? Excuse me, but you do not use your words ineffectively. You do not use them loosely, right? And how you said that with, you believed you were saying and doing the right thing. That's the important part here, because there's a lot of people that just go out and say things, right? And just talk and talk and talk. At 18, did you have that ability to discern and to know that what you were saying was right? Or was that a skill you built over time?
It's definitely a skill I built over time. My problem was, when I was growing up, my mother was a teacher in the same school district that I attended. I had to be on my best behavior all the time. I could not get in trouble. I couldn't skip school, anything like that. Because if I did something wrong, by the time I got home that night, she already knew about it. And so I always had to be, watching what I did, and my father and mother both sat my sisters and I down and said, "You are never to sully the reputation of our last name." And that message stuck. And, so I had to be very careful. I couldn't get in a fight. I couldn't, you just had to treat people right and with respect all along. But then when I got to college and I looked around, nobody knew me there, and I didn't have that weight on my shoulders, of the burden of being a good boy, so to speak.
The name on the back of the jersey. was
Exactly.
yours, not your family's.
Exactly. So I was able to, and I had been, bullied a lot as a kid. And when I got to school and I realized I don't know anybody here, so nobody knows me, now I could be myself.
Mm.
And that's kind of what, released the Kraken, so to speak, and set me on a different path. And I kind of like the guy I turned out to be rather than
Yeah.
being the guy who's always going to be bullied.
What parts of you can you connect the dots between the choices you made to be a good boy and got bullied at the same time? Like what were some of the shifts? Was it just peeling back a few layers and releasing expectations, or did you implement change and change behaviors when you had that freedom to be yourself?
I just knew that I would never treat anybody the way that I had been treated by others. And I never tried to demean anybody, make them feel less than me. When I meet somebody new for the first time, they're the most important person in the room to me.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as they treat me with that same level of respect, we're going to get along just great. It's never a revenge thing where, well, you beat me up in fifth grade, so I'm going to make you look. I don't care anymore. That's in the past. But I think it's more from the standpoint of, just being kind, treating people nicely, treating people the way I would like to be treated, where I can, helping them, if I can, and kind of lifting them up rather than trying to put me on the higher pedestal.
Hmm. Well, and that is certainly something that you have done in abundance, at least in my observations. But I see so much in you of a coach, right? And as a coach, maybe I'm looking for more people speaking my language, but the way you build your teams at work, the way you build your community efforts, all the things you do, it's not about you, right? How do you bring a coach mindset of meeting people where they are and helping them grow beyond that, whether it's in your business or in your community, efforts? What are
It's
some of the things you do?
it's more trying to find the best in them. And that doesn't matter whether it's just an employee, salaried employee, or if it's some of the kids that I work with in the workplace readiness program who are special needs on the autism spectrum. I have said this, and I lobby hard, for kids with autism, that I don't look at their disability. I want to find their ability, and it's in there. But so many times it's, and I don't know if I'm going to use the right word, but kind of think of it like a cake plate lid. The
Mm-hmm.
parents say, well, this is my child and he's disabled. And they put him under that lid. And the teachers will say, well, this is my student and he's disabled. And yet, if you take the lid off and just let them show you what they can do, you'd be amazed. And
Mm-hmm.
you've taken kids here over the last 10 years and that couldn't, they didn't have the manual dexterity in week 1 to do the task. By week 12, they're nailing it. And they're like, some of them are better than some of the employees that I've hired. So it's really just trying to find out everybody's skill set and what they do well, and then capitalizing on that and making them realize that they can do all that. And that's what a good coach does. Are you a good, like,
Mm-hmm.
a great example is a kid who went to 100 Central, Jason Kabinda. He worked for me for 1 week. We had to need some help, so I brought him in, and he played at Penn State. He's now playing for the Detroit Lions. He was always a linebacker, but the Detroit Lions said, we think you'd be a better fullback, and he slipped into that role and he's excelled. He's been with them now 4 or 5 years.
That's so
And
cool.
that's what a good coach does, is finding the talents and then using it to the best of that person's ability.
Mm, that is so cool. And if I'm not mistaken, the tell me the name of the program, the 100 and
Yeah, so it's called the Workplace Readiness Program out of
okay.
100 Central High School. And what this is they have students on the spectrum will go to school until they're 18 and graduate. And then this program takes them from 18 to 21. And we're trying to teach them job skills. I throw in as much as I can life skills. Can you take out the garbage for mom and dad? A lot of these kids, the parents say, well, he can't take out the garbage. I have to take out the garbage. You can take out a
Mm-hmm.
bag of garbage and throw it in a can. So we'll talk about, how can, because the one thing that parents come to me and they say is, I'm so afraid that if I die, what will happen to my son or my daughter? And that's where I think we have to work on the independent living of these kids, not just getting them to exist day by day by day. I'm involved with another group called the Star Thrower Group, And that's when they're like 25 and older. And there we're teaching them the same things, job skills, life skills, interview skills, but we're also teaching them, hey, do you know how to scramble an egg? You know, can you pour a bowl of cereal and get a milk and make breakfast kind of thing? Teaching them that independence so that hopefully someday they could either live independently or function, God forbid something happens to mom or dad.
Yeah. And I really resonate a lot with what you're saying. And, you know, my son was born with a cleft lip and palate. And during my pregnancy, I was aware. And even into the first few months of his life, you know, I saw it as my son has special needs. He's got this disability. And it took a good friend saying to me, really though, does he really, and letting me shift my perspective and taking him out of that bubble of overprotection. Right. And I probably just made the bubble bigger, but I tried to release that cake topper, but it's difficult to do that. And we need people in our lives who will come in and say, but what if something else were possible? And as you know, shortly they're going to be arriving at Crown Trophy and beginning their work for the day. And I just marvel at that. And my question is, how did you get involved in this particular demographic or service with Hunterdon Central?
It actually started about 45 years ago, maybe. I was a volunteer for Somerset County Special Olympics. I had two very close friends who, back in the 60s, when I was growing up, they always described Glenn and Kyle as they're mentally retarded. And it's a horrible term, but it is, what they were.
Well, it was common, right?
Yeah.
And we can't judge to what we know today.
Right.
We can't judge people back then for that. And
right.
maybe
and
it sounds crass
the thing
now,
is, when I look back at them, they weren't on any spectrum. This was in its core mental retardation in their development. They couldn't tie their shoes, but they could tell you Thurman Munson's batting average, for the year, the night before, updated. And all. It was amazing how their mind worked. And that was my first exposure. And they were very good friends, with our family. And, we did Christmases together. And I never treated them any differently than just a friend. It wasn't, I had to be special or act differently. It was just Glenn and Kyle. And unfortunately, they both, have since passed. But when I got involved, then just by volunteering as a one-on-one volunteer, eventually, I was asked to join the committee, and then I was asked to be the chairman, and I did that for 5 years. And, we worked with 600 athletes, 1,200 volunteers. We put on a track and field day. We had a budget of like $3,000. So I wrote a fundraising letter and asked two retired gentlemen on our committee, just go up and down the highway, drop it off at every business. We went from 3,000 to 30,000.
Wow.
Now I was able to expand into 9 different sports, but I've always had a love for that, community, the special needs community. And I don't think they get a fair shake in society. So when I was approached by Michelle Murphy at Hunterdon Central about the workplace readiness program, I said, yeah, bring me a student, bring me a job coach, and let's see what this is. And the funny thing over the 10 years has been the transformation, in the kids, but also in Michelle, because I've had to teach her to look at this, not from a teacher standpoint, but from a business owner standpoint of what we're trying to get out of the kids. And I try to teach the kids, this is the job you're doing today. But rather than just putting, a trophy figure on a coupler, on a rod, I want them to see, how does that affect the whole job? How does that affect the organization? And as many of the students who will have come through here will tell you, time is money. So, and they learn that lesson. And, so it's, we get them, head down, get to work, boom, boom, boom. We reward them, but it's more about, once they understand where they fit into the puzzle, it makes them work that much harder.
I marvel, because this is what we all need to learn. Yep. Right. And it's not just about in our public institution of school and education today. It's so put the pieces together, package it up, get the grade, and be done. Put the pieces together, package it up, get the grade, and be done. And what you're teaching is the long-term value, the emotional, cultural, financial, social impact of the work that they're doing. And I believe that if we all had a little more of that, I mean, think of how that would lift the black cloud. If we all understood the work that we were doing and why and how it was important and how we choose to engage in it. So, I think we need to think we need to continue expanding this understanding so that more people can be less sad. Hey there, amazing listeners of And All the Things. It's your host, Michaela here, your partner in growth and joy, coming to you with an exciting opportunity. Are you ready to infuse your life with a burst of positivity, perspective, and purpose? I am thrilled to announce to you that the Course for Joy, brought to you by Joy Enterprises and yours truly, is available for you today. If this podcast has tickled your brain to think beyond where you are ready to embark on a transformative journey where you'll discover the boundless joy you deserve. Life surely can get hectic, and self-care often takes a back seat. That's why we've designed this 4-week self-guided adventure to seamlessly fit into your daily routine. So, in just 15 minutes, a few times a week, the enlightening video lessons, engaging workbooks, and open office hours will guide you through a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. As a special bonus, once you enroll in the Course for Joy, you'll receive an offer for an exclusive 50-minute live one-to-one coaching session to discuss your progress and where to go from here. We'll chart your course of joy together, celebrating your progress and creating space for your next steps. Are you ready to paint your life with vibrant joy and purpose? Head over to myjoycoach.com to learn more about the transformative Course for Joy. Let's amplify your joy and ignite your purpose together.
Part of what motivated me to continue with the program, because it's a time constraint on me. It's a time constraint on my staff. You know, when the kids come in here, I'm usually finding myself staying an hour or two extra at night because I have to make up for the time and I don't mind that at all. What bothers me is how we've gotten a lot of publicity on the program, a lot of publicity on the success. I post, various success stories with the kids online. People see it and they'll say, "Oh, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job." It's like, great. You own a business. Why can't you? And it doesn't matter what the business is. We have these kids in Lowe's. We had them at Marshall's. We've had them at Jersey Mike's. We've had them at my store. So why can't others just take the time? And with a job coach, all you have to do is show them, this is what I want to accomplish today. And the job coach is going to make sure the work gets done. And, it could be something as simple as sweeping the hair off of the floor at the barbershop, at the hair salon, but they're feeling productive and they feel like they're contributing. And they take such great pride in that.
So let's take a moment here. What stands in the way of these folks, right? The people who own businesses, maybe you're talking to me, and aren't participating in this, right? So Michaela goes on, "Jim, you're doing great work. Awesome. What's going to get me over the hump? Are there tips and tricks to how you manage the time, how you implement it? Do you have a goal for your business associated to community impact? How can other people slowly get there to say yes to this?"
I think part of it is education and removal of fear. We have to educate these people, again, on the students' abilities. And then, for lack of a better term, I'm just going to use the word prejudice. I think in their minds, they don't think, and maybe they've had a bad experience with a child that has autism. And there's different triggers for these kids. Sometimes it's bright light. Sometimes it's loud sounds. You go into a restaurant and you got 80 voices and they can't process that. And they'll act out, not in a bad way, but just to get themselves almost reset. I've had kids come in and they'll do something funny with their hands, or they'll shake their head or something. And it's just a matter of them getting into a comfortable place for themselves. So if we
getting the energy out, right? Like
exactly
realigning. Yeah.
If we get the people to eliminate the fear, eliminate the prejudice, and take a chance. I'm only asking for people to try it one marking period. You can try it one day. And I guarantee you that after a day or a week, you're going to fall in love with these kids. You're going to see something getting done, and you're going to want them to be a part of your team. The greatest success story I had was we had a large pharmaceutical client. I should actually have one here so I could show it to you, but it was a pinwheel project for prostate cancer. We had to assemble 25,000 pinwheels. We had to ship them all over the world.
Wow.
And we had 2 weeks to get it done in the middle of summer.
Wow.
I didn't have enough employees. So I called Michelle and I said, I have my A team. I know who I want. Who do you think are the four best students that have either are in your program or have graduated? She gave me four names. They were the same names I had. I said, I
Love it.
need their parents' phone number. I got to call them. Explain to the parents what we were doing and told them I'm paying them $15 an hour, but they got to show up at 9 in the morning. They're going to leave at 5 in the afternoon. And we got the job done. And it was very, there was 13 steps to assemble just one pinwheel. But that once they got it down, and the first 10 took probably half an hour. Once they got it down, they were banging them out. We actually finished the project a day early. It was their first paying job. And it just showed me, like, I could have gone anywhere. I could have put out a blast. I need 4 people, 10 people to help me. I knew what, once I gave these kids the instructions, I could walk away and it would get done right. And that to me is one of the greatest success stories to ever come out of that program. And I don't do it. You mentioned something. I don't do it for look what I'm doing and praise that way. I'd rather look at what the kids are doing. It doesn't matter how this reflects on Crown Trophy or Jim Gano. It's more, how does this reflect on these students? And then hopefully people say, I can take a chance with this.
I applaud you, sir. I really, it's just amazing to watch you do what you do. And, for background, I believe I met you because we came in to get some plaques made for Fimble ADS, which is, my family business where Chris and I were first on the taking care of business. And Chris, my husband and I were both just smitten by you, not only your willingness to support and help, but the authenticity that you brought. And looking around your shop, you can see how much participation you have in the community. So how has being an entrepreneur supported this life that you want to live of using your voice and your gifts to the betterment of others?
Well, the best thing is when you have a customer in front of you and you're either talking about their project or they're paying for the completed job, I have an audience. And like I said, I have a big mouth and I'm not afraid to use it. So I will promote the workplace readiness program. I will talk about, I've had people that have, said, oh, well, we need an MC for this. Like, hello, I'm an MC. I do this professionally, and they'll hire me. One of the great stories we had years ago was I was maybe a year in business, if that, and maybe only 6 months. And a woman owned a dance studio, and she had rented out a local school, but they wouldn't let them use their staging because of a liability issue. So she comes in to pick up the awards for all the dancers, and she's in a really bad mood. I go, this should be a happy time. You're going to give the kids their awards. Why are you so upset? She said, well, the school won't let us use their stage. I said, so build your own. And she goes, what? I go, build your own stage. And she goes, well, I don't know how to do that. It's like, well, I actually do. I'm pretty handy with tools. So I said, tell me how long. She says, it's got to be 24 feet long, 2 feet high with 2 stairs. I was like, okay, give me your credit card. I went over to Home Depot, bought everything I needed. I had all the tools here, and we built 3 stage sections that she could transport. And I said, she goes, well, what do I owe you? I said, nothing. But I said, I will work for food. So my favorite is chocolate cookies. And about 2 days after the show, this minivan pulls up in front of the store, and a bunch of little girls come out like they're like the clown car in the circus with a plate of chocolate chip cookies, screaming, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, because that helped their show go on. And, so that's the kind of thing that, if I see a problem, I want to fix it. And if I have the talents or the resources, let's do it.
So how do you manage that, right? Because, and I used you in a recent workshop that I offered and you were a participant in of, I bet you have a lot of people saying, Jim, I need a ride. Jim, I need help. Jim, I need this. How do you manage and balance those boundaries, right? Because you cannot help everyone, right? And when you choose to, sometimes it means the consequence of eating into your time in the evening or other decisions you get to make. So how do you manage that boundary of wanting to give so much and understanding that there are some limitations to resources?
I always put other people's needs before my own. And so if you need that ride to the airport, if you need, me to watch your dog or something like that, I look at my own schedule and I say, okay, I have this, but I could move that to Sunday. I could move that to Monday, something like that. And I would say a good 95% of the time, I'm able to help the person with what they need. And it's not for anything in return. I don't want money, and but if there's ever a time when I need help, I'm hoping that they would return the favor in kind. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's something as silly as the ride to the airport, and other times not life threatening or anything, but that they're in trouble and they need your help, so you help.
I love it. But I'm also hearing you say that you do so with intention, right? It's not just a quick yes. I'm going to think about it. What is the cost to my schedule, my choices, and can I manage it? And I think that that's so important to be able to, it sounds like you've been giving in this way for at least 40 years. You said going back to the Special
Maybe
Olympics.
62. I'm not really sure.
Maybe 62. And I would believe that. I would believe that your whole life has been spent in this way. So let's gather it all together, right? You're putting out all this good into the world. You're managing your mindset. You're using your gifts and bringing light to the world. And then, as I understand, you get cancer. And it is something that obviously is very big, but being a public person where everybody knows your name, right? What was the experience like of finding out, and feel free to share as much or as little as you like, but finding out about cancer, bringing it into your everyday life, and then figuring out what role it's going to play?
Yep. I mean, the way I describe it is there's the 5 stages of grief. And when the doctor first told me, I had in my mind, I already knew, because my wife is in cancer research. I'm a pretty smart guy when I turn on the Google machine, and just by putting in blood markers and descriptions, I was like, check, check, check. I have multiple myeloma. So when the doctor finally told me on December 21st, he was like, so we'll probably get you started with chemotherapy in February. I go, no. And he goes, what do you mean no? I said, what do you got next week? And it was like, here we are a couple of days before Christmas. He goes, well, that's Christmas week. I said, is anybody working in this hospital? And he goes, yeah. I said, is there a bed open? He goes, yeah. I said, get me in that bed. So he goes, don't you want to take time to absorb all this? I said, I already did. I felt sorry for myself for 15 seconds. I said, you can forget the other 4 stages of grief. There's only one that matters, and that's acceptance. I have it. Let's get rid of it and move on. So we did the chemo thing, and then I had to do a stem cell transplant, which was grueling. It was painful at first, but it takes you, no matter how healthy you are, this is going to bring you into what they call the basement, and then you got to climb back out. And there were some people 20, 30 years ago that would not survive the transplant, and I did, but it was all my attitude and everything else. Being a public personality actually created some problems for me. I had the stem cell transplant in mid-May. I was back to work half days in July. But in June, I started getting phone calls from some very trusted friends that said, hey, I'm sorry to hear you have to sell the business because you have cancer. I said, I'm not selling the business. Then it was, I heard you have to close the business, because you're sick. I said, I'm not closing the business. Jen and the folks here ran the place in my absence and did a great job with it. And then the worst one was when a friend called me and said, very sorry to hear that you died and the business is closing. And that's when I had to go public with my diagnosis. And I missed a day and a half of work through all of the chemo.
Oh my gosh.
And but when people start saying I'm dying, now it's the survivability of the business. So I had to get out and put out a newsletter, press release, and everything else. No, I'm not dead yet. And please continue to use Crown Trophy of Flemington. We'll fulfill your orders. There were customers that had big orders that never knew I wasn't even in the office for 3 months.
Wow.
So, sometimes you have to navigate the difference between Jim Gano, the personal private guy, and Jim Gano, the public guy. And I try to explain this to my wife. It's like, you're schizophrenic. Sometimes you have to be these two different personas. And Dan Rather had a book, and the title was great, especially for a broadcasting major, when he said, the camera never blinks. And when you're in the public eye, whether you own the business, you're an employee of the business, or anything else, the camera's always on, So I can't do something stupid. I can't get drunk at a wedding. I can't get drunk in a bar, because everybody's going to come back and say, oh, that Jim, he was drunk in a bar, or get in a fight or anything like that, because, everything would be a reflection back on the business.
And do you think that's tied to the commentary that your parents gave you when you were a kid of do not blemish our good name?
It's that, and it's what Herb Brooks told Team USA. The name on the front of the jersey is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. And, so I look at it as if, rather than it saying USA on the jersey, it either says Gano family or Crown Trophy or something, whatever I'm representing. And I don't want to do anything to embarrass anybody that I'm involved with. And I've seen it time and again where a person does something wrong, and at first it's the reflection on them, but then they find out, oh, well, he works at this law firm, and now it's a reflection on that law firm. And you can even take it down to the perp walks in New York City when a guy is being handcuffed and led out to the van, and what's he wearing? An Adidas shirt, a Nike jacket, a New York Yankees cap, a New York Mets cap, and that's all a reflection on those companies, even though they didn't do anything about the crime, but now I'm like, well, every Yankees fan must be, a perpetrator or, something like that, or anybody who wears Nike is a bad person. It's the image that you're trying to protect.
And there's so much of that today, right? Like with the world of social media and exposure, and we are not taking the time to read more than just the headline, right? We're not getting more than just that image of a person in this branded outfit who's committing a crime. So it's hard sometimes to decipher between the brand, the culture, the ideas behind it. So what would you say is Crown Trophy's driving mission?
For the overall organization or Crown Trophy of Flemington?
Crown Trophy of Flemington.
Okay. For my business, for my business, it's to be a good neighbor, a good partner in the community. Help where we can help. We can't help everybody, but a lot of organizations have asked me, will you be on our board of directors? And the first question I ask them is, are you using me just for my name and reputation, or are you looking at me as somebody who may be able to help you? Because I said, if I'm going to join your board, you got to put me to work. If you're just looking for my name on the letterhead, I'm not your guy.
Right.
And I saw this a few years ago. It was a nonprofit, and it had some of the top business people in the Hunterdon County area. And what happened was the director was embezzling money. She got caught. Now, that is not just a reflection on that organization, that individual, but everybody whose name is on that letterhead, is in some way blemished by it. So I won't do that. And I've walked away from organizations if I feel they're not going to be fiscally responsible, or if they're not living up to their mission statement, and it's not about, always making money. It's about, what is your mission? What is your purpose? And are we living that every day?
That's incredible. And would you say that Jim Gano's mission is the same, or are there differences that you pull into your personal mission?
It was funny because I was interviewed back in April or May by the Courier News. I had helped out an organization, and they kind of like this interview here. They were like, "We're kind of amazed at what you do," and I don't think it's anything special. I just do what I do. And the interviewer, after an hour and a half, asked me the question, and I might have put it to you the last time I interviewed you on the radio. Was
Yes, you did.
And the question was, if I were to look you up on Wikipedia, what would your Wikipedia page say about you? And that really got me thinking. It was probably 10 minutes before I could come up with an answer, but my answer would simply be that I made a difference in other people's lives. And so whether it's stopping on the side of the road and helping a pregnant woman change her tire or something like that, whatever I've ever done, it's never been to increase my scorecard. Like, look at me, I've done all these great good deeds or something like that. It's just, I've made a difference. Was that lady able to get home safely to her family and things like that? So all I'm looking to do is, if I can make a difference, I'm a happy guy. And hopefully, 100 years from now, when I'm dead and gone, they're still telling stories, about, well, I remember when this guy did this, Jim did that, and I had a friend who died last year, and there's no remembrance of her, no permanent remembrance. She didn't have an obituary. She didn't have a funeral. We didn't have a memorial service. And so if you were to Google her name, you would never find her, and I don't do it for the accolades or anything like that, but I'm hoping that at some point, when I'm gone, and hopefully that's a long time from now, that, people will look back and say, he made a difference in my life. And there's so many people that came before me that I can say that about, so even though they're dead, I'm not forgetting them and their lessons.
Well, and that's evident in the story you told about the 18-year-old version of yourself who got called in by the broadcast professor, right? Mm-hmm. And that simple statement of you got to be yourself has carried you through. And my guess is there are a lot of people along the way who will say the same thing about you. That is, I can say that with certainty. Hey, my lovely listeners of And All the Things. Remember that incredible episode number 21 with my dear friend Ella Majors? Well, we have got thrilling news for you. I am very excited and honored to join with Ella and her mission as an affiliate for her 22 Reboot program. Having gone through the program myself, I can attest to its ability to deliver results and growth, both personally and professionally. So here's what's up. You have earned the accolades, you have done the work, you have achieved massive success, and you've conquered it all. But you've neglected the one asset you cannot afford to lose, your health. What if in just 22 days you could feel freaking fantastic? What if you could completely reboot your life and health, allowing you the energy, the clarity, and the drive to continue conquering the world? The 22 Reboot will get you there. After just 22 days of following this revolutionary transformation system, hundreds of successful entrepreneurs, including myself, have experienced massive, measurable results, all while making conscious, ethical, and compassion-based lifestyle choices that honor our planet and the animals who live here. It is time to disrupt your life so that you, and only you, can save it. So join the hundreds of people whose lives have already been changed thanks to Ella's expert coaching. Her coaching material, content, and direction aligns so beautifully with the work I do here at Joy Enterprises. The difference is she pulls in the plant-based and wellness factors that I don't have the experience for. So because I cannot keep a good thing to myself, I have to tell you about this. So if it's got you interested, please click the link in the show notes or reach out directly and feel free to ask as many questions as you want, because you are worth it. It is time for you to commit to yourself, your body, and the planet in the very same way that you have committed to your business, your family, your life, and all the things that you've said yes to. And let's do this. In this way of leaving your legacy, you have become an author. You've written now 2 books, is that right?
2 books, third's in production, well, almost done. And then I have a 4th the 3rd book is more a business book. And I wrote it before COVID, and COVID just changed the entire business environment. So I've had to rewrite several paragraphs because it had to incorporate the work from home aspect. So that's getting ready to come out. And with that, it's called the action plan. And what it's going to do is I introduce a topic in the chapter. And then at the end of every chapter, I ask a question. And it's, like something like how, like the example with Mark Mills, what won't you give a shit about today? And if it's impacting the way you work or it's impacting your progress in your future. And they have to write down 5-6 lines of what that means to them. And the hope is that we'll get a website up that's interactive, a YouTube channel up that's interactive, and then have some classes where people can join us similar to this, like a Zoom meeting, and openly discuss it, and try to lift everybody up and make the businesses better, make the employees better and more productive and hopefully more profitable. The 2 books that I wrote fiction wise, one is called The Student, the other is called The Player. I heard the term years ago, the bucket list. And I do not believe in bucket lists at all. I believe in the do it now list, because I don't want to look back at 80 and said, oh, I should have done that. I could have done that. I have this list of 100 things and oh, look, I've only done 6 of them. And one of the things I always wanted to do was write a book. I've always been a good writer. So I did. And the first attempt was probably 12 tries that all sucked. And then I finally realized, you can't tell a story and solve the case in 7 pages. That's not really going to sell well. So then I wrote the fiction book, and the first fiction book, The Student, and it just kind of flowed and got a lot of great reviews from it. The Player, I just released about 2 years ago, got even better reviews, more exposure, and now I have people like emailing me saying, "Hey, it's been a while. When's your next book coming out?" I had one gentleman about 2 weeks ago email and said that he's read that book several times. His father was a professional basketball player and with the Celtics, and so he's got this scrapbook of his father's that was signed by Kevin McHale, who was a famous Boston Celtic, and he goes, "I want to bring it to your store and have you sign it too." I'm like, "I'm nobody, what do you?" But this is what he wants.
But you are, right? To the world, you may be nobody, but to somebody, you become everything, right? For that experience. So what are the themes in those 2 books that are really getting attention?
I think a lot of it is, a woman came to me, was in my office last week, and she'd read both books, and she goes, this is the first time I heard this, but she said, "I kind of feel a Christian theme in your books." And I go, "I didn't mention church. I didn't mention it." I said, "Where would you come up with this?" She goes, "Your characters are good people and they help others. And, it's sometimes it's the underdog, but other times it's, that one lead character is helping another in a way that, but and again, not asking for anything in return." But she goes, "I just have this feeling like there's more in you, or that's more like Christian bent and putting this forward." And again, I reread both books. And I go, "I don't get it."
Interesting.
I don't mention a church. I don't mention faith or religion, but I could see where she was saying that, okay, this character is very nice. He's helpful. He's this and that. But it was a weird look at it. But I was like, okay,
Well, and it just goes to show you, I mean, we all look at life through our own lenses and with our own experiences, and you never know who you're going to reach, Do you have, and it's your call to answer, but do you have a relationship with church, or what's that?
Yeah, I do. Probably more, I converted from Methodist to Catholicism when I was 25. I was marrying a Catholic girl. When I was growing up, the family across the street from me, how was it? Mom and the kids went to the Methodist church. Dad went to the Catholic church, but they never worshiped together, except maybe around Christmas. And I didn't want that, to be what my kids grew up in. And there's nothing wrong with it. They had faith in their household, but I just wanted us all to be in one place. And I actually taught 5th grade CCD for 5 years and at St. Anne's in Raritan. And every now and then when I see the person who runs the program, I say, "Any chance you'll come back?" I was like, "Well, kids in this is, I don't want to feel weird about it." But so faith has always been, at my core. And I think it was strengthened when I converted. And, I've read the Bible twice. I'm in the point now where I want to pick it up again and do it again. Just kind of as a reminder, to myself of who I am. That's probably how I'm based. And a funny story about that was last week, a woman came in. I always tell people in business, you have to be different to be remembered. And so a great example of this was last week. A woman came in to order a plaque, and she goes, "I know you." And I went, "How do you know me?" She goes, "You taught my son 5th grade CCD." I was like, "Oh." She goes, "You're the teacher with the candy bars." So what I would do is I would buy this like 2-pound bag of candy bars, the minis. And if the kids were good, at the end of class, they could take a candy bar and go home. Had the blessing of all the parents, but I got their attention because all I had to do was hold up that bag and they would sit still and pay attention to the lesson. So that was fine. And it was fun to be remembered for that. And then I go to physical therapy 3 days a week, and we have a new aide there. And I'm sitting on the bike just doing my thing. And she goes, "I know you." I said, "How do you know me?" And, last time I saw her, she was in 5th grade. Now she's a grown woman. She goes, "You were my 5th grade CCD teacher.
Wow.
You brought the candy bars." I'm like, "Okay, I guess it works." But, so it's always been good that way. And, again, if I lead my life, hopefully the way the man upstairs wants me to, I'll be okay. But, I'm going to pack light just in case when I die, because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Might be
Well,
hot.
I'll say, you know, just listening to the retelling of these encounters, you may not have written it to be the characters to be in the way of Christ or a prophet, but you are also living your life in that way of honoring who you are, where you are, the people around you. So I think it's natural that that part shows up in the characters that you've created in your head. So I can see where she might be going with that. And I would take that as, you know, a huge compliment, because what we want is for people to connect with something meaningful and to see the light, the magic, the whatever you want to call it, in their lives each and every single day. And I know you work really hard. I don't know if you work really hard, but you focus your energy on receiving the good. In the overwhelm workshop that we shared a few weeks ago, you know, I asked the question of, well, what makes you sad? And you were like, nope, I don't do that. I don't get sad. I'm like, oh, okay. And you said, well, it comes and then I see it and I help it to move on, or I let it go, right? But I don't own it and hold on to it. Do you have a practice for that? Right? Is that a spiritual thing for you? Is that just your innate way of being? Or is there a skill that you use to keep that clarity?
It's more recognizing it when it comes, and then, you know, acknowledging it, dealing with it, and then saying, I can't live like this. And I am surrounded by people that have the gray cloud over their head. The other shoe is always going to drop. It's the world's against me. And, you know, I'm like, guys, you got to snap out of this or get a better umbrella, because, you know, this is not the way you're going to live your life and enjoy it if you're always worried about the next worst possible thing. And, you know, so, you know, sadness, and don't get me wrong, you know, my father dies, I'm sad, you know, stuff like that. But and anybody else in my life, you know, it's, you know, it's terrible and it's sad, but I still have to move on. And it's not like I'm just putting them in a box and saying, okay, you know, that's it, and I'm never going to think of you again. You know, there's still times when I'll say something, I was like, that wasn't me, that was my father who said that. You know, or I'll point my finger the same way he did, and I'm like, where did I develop that finger? You know, just little things. And it literally just happened yesterday. I'll take a moment, I'll think about him. But, you know, if you lose a contract, there's some people that would be ready to jump off a building. I'm not. I was like, well, I screwed that up, I got to move on and get another one. You know, but I don't let it control me, I don't let it consume me, I don't stay sad for long. I have to, that's not in my DNA. And I'm an upbeat, positive type A personality. And that's what makes me happiest. So that's where I'd rather be, in that zone than in the sad zone.
Yeah, it's a choice, right? We can't always control the conditions that are coming our way, but we can control how we react to them. And to your point, you know, your dad passes, that's really sad. And it's okay to feel sad. You are diagnosed with cancer. That's sad, scary, frustrating, all the things. And you said 15 seconds, and maybe it was 15 seconds, but it's also then, but now what? What am I going to do with this?
Right.
Because I could stay in this place, this dark, you know, total clouded place, or I can do something different. And the way that you do that with, you know, the children on the spectrum and finding their gift, it's just highlighting their light. I imagine that when you're announcing, you're highlighting the light of the players on the field and the people in the stands and bringing them together.
And it's very important to me in that situation for both the home team, and I love the high school. You know, it's the high school I went to. So I'm definitely rooting for a Panther win every week. But there's kids on the other side of the field and parents on the other side of the field that don't want me to mispronounce their name, Gano, Ganu. You know, so I will take the time, and I've called athletic directors and said, okay, number 34, what is this? And he'll tell me. I say, all right, so now phonetically I write it out. Even on our own team, I'll do the same thing, you know, but because I know that there's a parent out there that if they hear their kid's name one time, that's made their day, their week, their month, you know. And what I try to do is, you know, what I'm announcing is like, okay, who threw the ball, who caught the ball, who tackled them. And if you hear me, I sound like a train conductor, because I'll say 1-7-49. Nobody knows what I'm talking about there, but I know that 1 threw the ball, 7 caught it, 49 tackled them. Now, when I look at my rosters, I can just go 1-7-49, and everybody knows now it's 2nd down and 4, you know. And but I did a game at Somerville 2 weeks ago, and their announcer couldn't do the game, so they called me, and I announced their game. First time ever announcing there. And as I'm walking back to the parking lot, nobody knows who I am. I just got a briefcase over my shoulder. I'm walking to the car, and a woman, said to her husband, "Man, that announcer was really good tonight. I wish we could have him every week." Mission accomplished. I did what I was supposed to do.
Yes. And I want to pause and thank you. I believe it was sometime while you were at that game that you took time to send me a text message and shine light on me and lift me up as affirmation to the work that I had done in that workshop. And I want to tell our audience, I cannot tell you what that meant to me, right? Because as we've identified, you don't use your words carelessly. You use them for effect. You use them to see the light in other people. And I got one of those texts and I was like, Chris, look at this. This is great. And it's so, the fact that the Watchung player recognized your voice, you are using your voice in all the many ways you can to bring more light to this world. So my question is this: what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because I know you say a lot, always be promoting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you own a trophy company, among other things, but which came first? Did you open the Crown because you wanted to promote people, or did you open the business and then realize how much you loved promoting people?
Good question. Hard answer.
I had a hard time getting it out, so thank you.
The always be promoting thing has been something that I've been doing my whole life. And, so I've worked with enough, and for lack of a better term, I'm kind of like a miniature PR firm. If, somebody would come to me and say, "Oh, well, we're having this big event, but I don't think anybody's going to come." I said, "Well, did you send a press release?" "I don't know how to send a press release." I was like, okay. So years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, the Guardian Angels were going to take over a house in Trenton, which is the house that Martin Luther King Jr. lived in during his seminary. It'd become a drug den. And so
that's an interesting twist.
Yeah. So I had a Guardian Angel in my office, and he said, "We're doing this thing. We're cleaning out this house. We're taking it back, and we're going to turn it into a museum to honor the Reverend Martin Luther King." And I said, "Man, that's great. That's a story that needs to be told." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I don't know how to do that." I go, "Well, give me all the particulars and I'll write a press release." So I wrote a press release. I then sent that to a friend of mine that works at a PR firm. They loved it. They sent it out to all of their media outlets. We were in the Washington Post, USA Today, the New York Times. I think the Washington Post sent a TV crew down to watch them cleaning up all the needles and everything else.
Wow.
So the always be promoting. You don't know, as Colin Powell said, you don't know what you can get away with until you try.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, it's just a press release. I didn't get paid for it or anything. It was just, but seeing how that blew up, was in the LA Times, and like, this little press release just got blown up, and people were donating money for the house and all stuff. I don't know whether or not it was ever turned into, because it's in a really bad section of Trenton, but they had the respect for Dr. King that I have, and it was just a press release. That's all. That was my contribution, but to get that exposure was huge. So the importance of promotion in anything, and a lot of times the failure of a business can be tied right back to, how did you market your business? And if you're not promoting, if you're not shouting it from the rooftops, so people know who you are, where you are, and what you do, what have you got? You're just a business hoping for people to come to you. When I first started, when I bought my Crown Trophy franchise, I was promoting it, and I set a sales record for rookie stores. And like, "We have no idea how you're doing this." And I was like, "Rule number 1, ABP, always be promoting." Like, what? So now I was asked to give seminars on how to promote their business, the individual franchises and things like that. And again, I'll share with anybody because I want everybody to succeed. But it all as far as the chicken or the egg, I would probably say that ABP came first and then Crown Trophy later.
I believe that, because I think probably even your freshman year, when you were broadcasting, poorly or beautifully, who knows, I imagine that was already part of it, right? You want to broadcast, you want to take the good things and share them out with the world. And I think that's just who you are. So when we look ahead, what would you say is next for you, right? You're going to,
Oh,
the book project and aligning parts, or what's next for you?
immediately, it's at the high school. I'm on the vice chairman of a committee for our Hall of Fame. So we have our induction dinner.
Very
And
cool.
so what I do is I make the program, I make the awards, the take home awards, the ones that go in the school, and I'm also the MC for that. So the next 3 weeks, that's it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously still working on the business. Um, Long range is, it's funny when you, as you mentioned that, what's next. My older son Brandon, when I was first diagnosed, he kind of asked me the same question: what are your goals? I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, I'd really like to get back and announce football. This, he goes, not too short. Well, I want to see, Angela get married, my niece who just got too short. I go, what are you talking about? And he finally said, he goes, you need to make long range goals. And he read a
Mm-hmm.
book where if you were sick in particular and you made short term goals, right after you achieved it, going to a wedding, staying alive to go to a wedding or something like that, very often you would die within 6 months because you had nothing else to look forward to.
Right.
So he goes, your goal is to go to Braden's wedding. And at the time, Braden was my 3-year-old grandson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that he's going to wait at least 20 years before he gets married. So that's every day when I wake up, I kind of say, just working to get to Braden's wedding.
I love
And
that.
so far, all the blood work is doing its job and everything. But so I everything I do is always goal based. And then
Mm-hmm.
when it's done, there's 4 or 5 more goals behind it, and some are personal and some are professional, but it's just working towards that next thing. Because I don't want to just sit here and say what's next. I want to know what's coming up.
So, what would you say? Do you collect things? Are you a collector?
Oh, you got me. Where is it? I do. And
Okay. I just
it
had
just
this
showed up.
vision. It just popped into my head. Ask about what he collects.
It just showed up the other day. It used to be baseball cards.
Okay.
Very, very big with them, but I got out of that hobby a while ago. I apologize for all the noise, but I'll show you what I got. It's a collector's edition. So anyway, I'm holding up a new Hess truck, and I have a
Oh, wow.
collection. I have a collection of Hess trucks where I am only missing 4 of them that ever came out. The original, which was employee only, and I have a couple of scouts looking for that. But I'm very proud of
When
my
was that? When did they come out?
1964 was the first one. To the public, it
Okay.
was 1966. Um, so I do collect the Hess trucks. And my wife knows it. It's a silly obsession, but that's mine. They're on display, and everybody comes over the house. They're like, man, I can't believe you have, and they're in
Mm-hmm.
mint condition. They've never been played with, and so they're happy. They like seeing that, but um, books are another one I love to read. And whether I love biographies, I love history, I love fiction. So I just like to read. And so that's another one I have. And my father-in-law passed away about a year and a half ago. And when we were selling my mother-in-law's house, she was like, well, why don't you take the bookcases? And I have these 2 beautiful bookcases full of books, and I
Wow.
just love it, that I can just walk in there and feel like I'm walking into a library.
Oh, that is, bucket list ideas, right? I am actively checking off my bucket list, but I do have one because I never want to get bored, right? I don't think I actually will get bored, but I always want to know more and more. And I really want to have a library in my home, and not just a couple. Like, I want a whole room full of
All wall
books,
to wall, just surrounded
wall to
by books.
wall book. And that's it. And just cozy chairs that I can sit in and just look at. Like, I love to touch the books and see them because they're filled with stories. And when we can understand other people's stories, get into their heads, get into their experiences, it really broadens our interaction with the world around us.
Mhm.
So, what would you say is maybe top 3 books that have just hit home for you in your
All right.
time here?
I would start with The Student and The Player, but I guess that's off limits.
Okay. No, that is not. So that's
No.
2. That's 2 of your top
No,
3.
to be honest, there was years ago I met the author, Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude by
Okay.
Norman Vincent Peale. Or Clement W. Stone, sorry. He was a speaker at our graduation in college. It was my job to pick him up at the airport, little regional airport. So I show up with a AMC Pacer. If you want to Google that car, folks, you're going to love that. This is how I pick up a bazillionaire at the airport. And we drive 15 miles back to the school. And the whole time he was talking to me, he was asking me about my mindset and things like that. And then he goes, do you always want to drive an AMC Pacer? I said, I don't want to be driving this one, but this is the one I have. And he goes, well, you can have anything you want, but you can get it through a positive mental attitude. So that was a game changer book for me. A friend of mine, Bob Glauber, wrote a book a few years ago, and I think it's called Guts and Glory. And it's about three coaches that I really admire. Bill Parcells of the New York Giants, Joe Gibbs of the Washington Redskins, and Bill Walsh from the San Francisco 49ers. And it followed them through an entire season, and just seeing how their minds work, how they would motivate their players. That just, was like, there's so many things in sports that you can bring over to the business world as far as how to motivate employees, how to get the most out of them, and how to have success. And the third, and these are in no particular order, would be the Bible. Mm-hmm. The best-selling book of all time.
Absolutely. And I in preparing I delivered the sermon at Flemington Baptist Church on Sunday. And, it was a challenge because we are in a space of great transition and our pastor is leaving and it's complicated. But I wanted to really understand why it's so complicated. And I look at it, there are 2,800 versions of the Bible, 1,900 languages it's translated into. And I'm like, no wonder we're all a little, right? There's a lot of noise and information. But when we distill it down, we're teaching about love. What you are saying in all of these experiences is self-love, love for the community, love for other people. And if we can just release some of the other noise, right? The fears that tell us we don't have enough, there's not enough time to bring people in from the community, we will be stuck in this place forever. And I love that in everything that you do, you're trying to move it forward, except your car. We're going to go back to that AMC Pacer and say, well, you could probably have any truck you wanted. What I know about you is you have an old truck. It's your vehicle. And you told me a story about how people are like, Jim, when are you going to get a new truck? And you said, when this one stops working, right? When it's no longer feasible. I appreciate so much that in a world where you could have more, you've chosen what's right for you. And then you've used your voice to help move that forward. And we have to hold on to those things that are special and precious and valuable, and then share what we have with the rest of the world. And I truly mean it. When you sent me a text message giving me a high five for the work that I did, and that was an act of love and a labor of love, I wanted to give people that experience. So receiving those words from you, from a man who is very intentional with his words, was very high praise. And it gives me courage to then always be promoting what I do and reminding me that I have people behind me who will support me and have my back while I figured these things out. And so much of this podcast is for me to learn, right? I want to learn more about what makes you and your greatness shine. And I think you have done an incredible job of that here with us today. I think we could talk certainly all day. We have before, but the way you show up and use your gifts to grow, change, and serve your business, your family. What we didn't mention is you're an EMT, right? There is no end to the way that you give, but you are healthy, you are strong, you are willing and able to fight obstacles. And that just goes to show that you can do it all when you do it for the right reasons. And I am so grateful that you got clear on that. And I think that you and your family and your employees and the people in the community who know you would be very happy. We are happy because we do it, to wear your name on our shirts.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just don't get in a bar fight when you're wearing it.
I mean, I guess I can hold back.
You mentioned something earlier, and in your Overwhelm seminar, you had the 5 words. Describe the 5 words at different stages of your life. And the one that I kept coming back to, I've talked to my wife about it, is that word curious. And you mentioned it with the books. And I have there was a woman on Jeopardy a few years ago I think she was from Chicago. And they said, well, how did you prepare for Jeopardy? And how did you get so good at it? And she said, my father told me when I was a little girl to learn 3 new things every day. Mm. And she made it her life's mission that every day she's like, so I took that advice and I was like, how do I learn 3 new things? And sometimes you're driving, I was like, how do they get those signs above the highway? So I Google, how do you get, and then, you watch a video or something, so I'm always on Google, and I'm researching different things, and, so I stay curious. And I think that's what feeds my mind. My grandfather back in the 70s was diagnosed with senility. My father had Alzheimer's. I don't want to follow in their footsteps. So I'm always working the brain, learning new things, trying new things. I go probably close to 18 hours a day, where either the body, the mind, or both are working on something. And because I don't want to end up like they did. I want to make sure that, I keep the brain healthy and always working.
I love it. And I think we have to learn so much from that, because it's not just that you're using your brain, but you're also using your body. You're keeping the connection between the two strong. And that's what's required for sustainability in business, in life, in sickness, and in health, in every aspect of what we do. So if you could, and you may have noticed, I'm a podcast total junkie. I love them, but I'm especially fond of Tim Ferriss. I've listened to a lot of him. And he asked the question at the end, kind of, most of the time, I would say, but with frequency, if you could have a billboard, right? Assuming your businesses, your endeavors are all properly promoted. If you could have a billboard to say one thing to millions of people, what would it say today?
It's the way I end my radio show every week. It's advice I got from my father when I was 6 years old. Sat my sisters and I down at the dinner table, and I'm not sure what prompted him, but he felt the need to tell us this, and it's this quote: "Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best." And in everything that I do, once the project is completed, I'll debrief with myself and say, okay, was it good? Could it be better? Was it the best? And we were a camping family. So when we pulled up to a campsite, first thing we do is get out, walk in a straight line, picking up cigarette butts and all this other nonsense that the last person had left behind. Mm-hmm. And then he would park the trailer and we'd unload. When we left, he'd pull out, we'd get out, we'd do the same little march, clean it up so that the next person could enjoy a clean thing. So again, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best.
I love it. Well, you are an inspiration to so many. And I know that the community that we share is so much better for your grace and presence. And in any way that I can continue supporting you and just joining you on this journey, it would be my true honor. So, Jim, thank you. Thank you for being you and all the things. And friends, check him out at crowntrophy.com. No. Tell us where we can find you, because I'm going to get it wrong.
www.crowntrophy152.com, or my personal website, just jimgano.com.
Perfect. And so if you want to hear more of Jim on the Taking Care of Business show, when can people tune in for that? And how do we find that?
It's Thursdays at 1:00. There's a page on Facebook. We're having some technical difficulties there now, but the show broadcasts live every Thursday at 1:00. You can go to the Facebook page, Taking Care of Business with Jim Gano, and I broadcast it live every week. And then you can always go to that page later to look at any other episodes that we're on. I would encourage you to scroll backwards to April 20th when I had Michaela Birdyshaw on. That was a great interview. And that was another one where we had an hour, but we could have gone for 3. I enjoyed talking with you, and I think we're like-minded people. Mm-hmm. Same with Chris. And, so I think that, let's do this again.
Absolutely. And I think the more we can both use our voice, that divine voice that is unique and similar to both of us, the better the world will be, because we need to hear more of this. So don't stop promoting. And friends, thank you so much for joining us today, and wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you make it a great day. Thanks so much. And that's a wrap on another episode of And All the Things. If you enjoyed today's show, please like and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you really liked it, please go ahead and rate it. Then think about who in your life might also need to hear it and any of the other episodes we have shared. Then share it with them. When you find something meaningful, something valuable, you've got to share it and pay it forward to those you care for. Thanks for joining us, and follow along on Instagram at MyJoyCoach to see more of me, your host, Michaela Birdyshaw. Okay, and here is the Hess truck. Make it a great day. What year is this? This is this year?
This just came out about 2 weeks ago.
And what's its super special feature? How many
This one has, it's a boat, which they usually don't do boats. The first one was a tanker ship. And then this one has a helicopter. It's got over 60 lights that light and flash, makes helicopter sounds. I know I sound super geeky right now.
I love it.
This is just a love for me from my childhood. When I was 17, I was tired of getting sweaters for Christmas. You were past the point of toys and games and stuff. And I think I had complained to my mother, and my cousin did too, that we never got toys anymore. And my mother and my aunt bought my cousin and I Hess trucks. And then after that, that was it. You know, as soon as they came out, I had to have one, and I would just go out and buy one. And it turned into a collection/obsession.
So are you continuing this with Braden, your grandson?
Yep. I buy this one, actually, that's in my office is his. He'll be up here in about 2 weeks to visit. And so he'll get this one. And then, but I buy 3 every year, 1 to display, 2 to keep nice. And he's opened up a couple of the boxes that were spares. And so he can play with them all the time. But, you know, the ones on the shelf, no touch.
Is there a group, a community of Hess truck collectors?
There's a lot of them out there. Like, there are people that, and this is just one thing, you know, that I do, but there are people that collect all kinds of toys. And so there's online forums, and the Hess company has a page dedicated just to the truck, and it gives all the history. So, you know, I'm on there pretty frequently. And I have, like I said, I have a couple of big time toy collectors, sellers that know what I'm looking for. And if it comes into their shop, you know, sometimes from an estate or something like that, it's, hey, I got this Hess truck. And do all the lights work? You know, do they have all the little attachments? And, you know, then if it happens, then I'll make an offer.
You know, and I just got to throw this in. I know that quality is a huge part of you and your business. So it doesn't surprise me that this is how you're handling your toys.
Yep. It's a crazy obsession, but it's mine.
But you know what? But that's what makes you so wonderful, because why not have crazy things, right? Like I know a woman that I work with who collects those smushed pennies.
Yep.
Right? From all over. And like, I have them, but I never thought of collecting them. And I just go to, what if we looked for magic in more places?
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, after the cancer, that's the one thing that I appreciate things so much more. Like, it was funny because I was cutting the lawn a week or 2 ago, and my wife planted some tree or bush out by the shed. Pulled the lawnmower out of the shed, never even looked at it. When I came around to like lap 3, I stopped it, turned it off, got out, looked at it. I'd never seen a flower so big. 2 years ago, I would never even notice that we planted a bush there, you know. But now it just makes me appreciate all the little things, all the things.
And all the things. All right. Well, I will officially let you go now, but I'm glad that we got that little bit